So in October of 2015, about 6 months after we started Superfit Foods, my mom was life flighted to the Tampa General Hospital because one of her friends found her unconscious after suffering from what's called a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And what that is basically where blood is just flowing profusely in the brain, causing swelling and rendering her unconscious. And so I got a call from the hospital, and of course, got to the hospital as soon as I could. And my mom was given emergency brain surgery where they cut her head open, diffused the blood, and she was actually in a coma for about a month. And eventually she woke up from the coma. It was an amazing thing. And she was in a vegetated state for a little over a month. And it was during that time we were able to get her on a liquid protein supplement. And from there, I was very adamant about my mother's nutrition. She couldn't talk, she couldn't ask for things. She basically just drooled on herself all day. And so as she began to be more functional, very slowly but surely, we put her on soft foods. And as we put her on soft foods, she began to recognize things. And eventually, and this is, the doctors told me that my mother may not wake up. And if she does, she may never acknowledge me or may never really wake up from a vegetated state. And if she does, she may never talk or walk again. And so as we gave her the soft food, she began to make noises, and I watched as her toes started to move. And as we advanced to soft foods, because there's levels to the soft foods, she said her first words to me, and I spent a lot of time at the hospital with her at night, and I would pray with her, and I would play music and read to her and stuff. And eventually we put her on hard foods, and long story short, my mom is fully functional and operating at least 90% of what she did prior to the stroke. And of course, it's an amazing blessing, and it's really a miracle. And the reason why that story is important to you who's watching or listening or hope maybe reading the blog that we wrote, is that because this incident is what fueled my passion for learning about how the things we eat impact our brain. You see, the thing about my mom's stroke is that yes, it was a tragedy, but it made sense. My mom did not take great care of herself, and she was on a traditional Western diet. She wasn't much different than any average American. And so she suffered from a massive stroke because of her blood pressure being high, living a stressful life, unusual sleeping patterns, and bad eating habits. And so as I watched, because I was very diligent about how we advanced my mother's nutrition in the hospital. And then when she got out, she began to eat Superfit Foods because, of course, I'm the owner and I'm going to feed my mother. And I watched her advance rapidly, faster than most people recovering from a stroke of that nature. And like the doctor said, it would be a miracle if she ever even talked again, let alone walk and work in the yard and stuff like that. So I've thought to myself, if nutrition played this big of a role in my mom's recovery, miraculous recovery from a stroke, what else can food do to the brain? And I thought a lot about people struggling with mental illnesses and diseases and things of that nature. So through my research, I found that the things we eat can either positively or negatively impact the management and or the possible recovery of certain illnesses like anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, dementia, and even autism, right? I don't talk too much about things like the OCD or the autism in this particular blog or episode, but if you dig in, you'll see a lot of case studies about food allergies affecting people with autism. So to simplify my research and to make this video as short as possible, I've given 4 ways that your nutrition can make you happier. Now keep in mind that this list is not exhaustive. I kept it as short as possible so it'd be easy to read or listen and apply. There's plenty more benefits to eating healthy. With the first one being more serotonin. Now, serotonin is what's considered the happiness drug. It induces feelings of well-being, confidence, happiness in the brain. Now, when most people see a psychiatrist or their primary care physician about things like depression and anxiety, oftentimes what you're going to be prescribed to is something called an SSRI, which is a serotonin inducer. Some of these drugs produce serotonin. Some of these drugs take the existing serotonin and multiply it. It's fairly complex, and I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to dig too deeply into that. But basically, what they do is increase your production of serotonin in the brain and make you happier. So, since about 95% of the serotonin produced in the body is produced in the gastrointestinal tract, it only makes sense that by feeding your body good nutrients, it can help to guide your positive emotions. Foods that are said to be potentially high in production of serotonin, or foods that are said to help increase your serotonin production, are eggs, nuts, seeds, fruits, turkey, and fish. The second reason, the second way that nutrition can help your brain is less inflammation. See, a lot of us are so focused on the way that food makes us look that we don't think so much about the way that food makes us feel. Studies have shown that when people take probiotics, which are supplements containing good bacteria, their anxiety levels, perception of stress, and their mental outlook improve compared to people who did not take probiotics. Now, instead of taking probiotic supplements, you can actually produce these probiotics by eating healthier foods. And I recommend both, right? If you've got the assets to be able to afford probiotics and you can change your diet, try both. Studies show that a traditional diet, like the Mediterranean diet, as opposed to a Western diet, can decrease your risk of depression by 25 to 35%. Scientists account for this difference because their traditional diets tend to be high in vegetables, fruits, unprocessed grains, and fish, seafood, and contain only modest amounts of lean meats and dairy. They are also void of processed foods. This is really the important part. They're void of processed foods and refined foods and sugars that negatively affect digestion and cause inflammation. So the second reason is less inflammation. The third reason is no more being hangry. So the thing is, a lot of us sometimes think that we've got these issues in life or these stressors, but we're really just hungry. And that sounds funny, but it's true. So when you skip meals or eat food high in sugar, your blood sugar eventually falls, and the hormones cortisol and epinephrine are released in an attempt to raise it back to normal. Those hormones lead to irritability, aggression, and sometimes even sadness, which explains why you're so crabby sometimes, especially around lunch break when you skip breakfast and you haven't eaten for 14 hours since dinner the night before. So when 1 p.m. comes around and you're questioning all your life decisions, and what you think might be mild depression or anxiety because of your midday slump at work could simply just be your inconsistent blood sugar levels due to your inconsistent diet. So the third reason, or the third way that nutrition can make you happier, is less hanger, more consistency in your diet. The fourth way is better sleep. I know better sleep, no matter what I'm going through in life, always makes me happier. Countless studies have shown that bad sleeping patterns correlate with obesity, as well as anxiety and depression. Now, even without the studies, I'm sure we can all agree that having sleep would lead to a better life. So by avoiding foods that you're allergic to, which is a big thing, finding out what you're allergic to, avoiding foods high in saturated fats, processed foods, especially close to bedtime or in general, you can increase the quality of your sleep and the quality of your life. Dr. Dave Ramsey, he's an assistant clinical professor at Columbia University, says, traditionally, and this is him speaking, we haven't been trained to ask about food and nutrition, but diet is potentially the most powerful intervention that we have. By helping people shape their diets, we can improve their mental health and decrease their risk of psychiatric disorders. Nearly 1 in 4 Americans have some type of mental illness, or report to have some type of mental illness each year. The CDC says that by 2020, depression will rank as the second leading cause of disability after heart disease. It's not just a problem for adults either. Listen, half of all long-term mental illnesses start by the age of 14. Today, childhood mental illness affects more than 17 million kids in the U.S. So as you can tell from either watching this, listening to this, or reading the blog that we wrote, what we eat can literally make our conditions worse or even cause them. So adversely, what we eat can make us better or alleviate these things. So the good news is you have the power to change it today, right now. Eating healthy just takes discipline and a little bit of education. You don't need to be a nutritionist or a dietitian, although seeing one of them might really help. Fortunately, there's plenty of companies out there that have services and products designed to help people just like you. If Superfit Foods or any of our community partners aren't convenient, affordable, or local, or maybe you just don't like them, there's plenty of other services out there. Superfit Foods is not the only meal prep company in existence. And the dietitians of Palm Valley partner with us to help people find out exactly what they need to be eating to make life easier for themselves. Now, please keep in mind this article or this video is not intended to suggest alternative forms of treatment if you're currently dealing with clinical levels of anxiety, depression, OCD, autism, anything like that, any of the above mentioned mental illnesses. So if you're on prescribed medication, please continue to take that medication, but we do highly recommend looking at your diet and making some positive changes and seeing a professional about it if needed. Now, if you do change your diet, please let your doctor, your primary care physician, or your psychiatrist know so they can begin to monitor your medication intake as it relates to your new diet or your new lifestyle that you've implemented. If you look at the blog that we sent out, if you're watching this video or listening to it, we've got some additional resources like the Dietitians of Palm Valley that we highly recommend. Eleni Shecklin at Beaches Mental Health. She works a lot with all people, but specifically people that deal with issues with their diet and eating habits. And then, of course, everyone at Superfit Foods would love to help you get started if we can. So if you enjoyed this video, please share it. If it helped you, please let a friend know. And if we can help you, please let us know. Thank you so much, and God bless you guys.